Welcome to the Sober and Happy podcast, where we talk about all things recovery related, how to navigate the challenges that we'll face along the way on our journey towards our best lives, and how we could go from living a life of simply just being sober to a life where we're both sober and happy. I'm glad you're here today because we're going to talk about something that affects a lot of people in their sobriety journey, feeling stuck. Maybe you're stuck in a pattern of chronic relapsing. Maybe you've done the hard work to get sober, but now it feels like your life is in a rut. Maybe you feel like you're just going through the motions and that spark you thought you'd find in sobriety hasn't fully ignited. If that sounds familiar, don't worry, you're not alone. This feeling of being stuck happens to many of us, but the good news is that it's temporary. Today we're going to talk about what it means to feel stuck in sobriety and how you can break free from it. So buckle up, this is going to be a great episode. Welcome back. One of the reasons we get stuck in sobriety is what we talked about last week, and that is that we're still holding on to the addiction mindset. What do I mean by that? Well, when we're in active addiction, our focus was singular, chasing that next drink or high. Everything else took a back seat. But in recovery, if we don't shift our focus to something positive and meaningful, we could easily fall into the same pattern of just chasing the day-to-day without any real sense of purpose. Think of yourself as a goldfish living in a small tank. When a goldfish is confined to a small space, it could only grow to a certain size. In a tiny fishbowl, that goldfish might only grow a couple of inches. But if you put that same goldfish in a larger environment, like a pond or a big aquarium, it could grow much, much larger, even up to 14 inches or more in the wild. The size of the tank limits the goldfish's potential for growth, just like our mindset and our environment could limit our growth in sobriety. When we're in addiction, we are living in a small restricted tank. Our minds and behaviors were confined by the destructive patterns we were stuck in. The problem is that many of us have been conditioned to think small, like that goldfish. You're used to the boundaries addiction created, and even though they're gone, you might still be acting as if they're there. In reality, you have far more space to grow and expand in sobriety than you did in addiction, but if you don't recognize that, you'll keep swimming in circles stuck in the same patterns. Sobriety gives you the freedom to grow into something bigger than you ever imagined, but only if you realize that the old tank no longer confines you and that you've got the whole pond to explore. A big part of feeling stuck comes from the stories we tell ourselves. We often don't realize that the narrative running through our heads is what keeps us stuck. If your internal dialogue is something like, "This is just how I am," or "I'm not meant for more than this," then you're setting limits on yourself without even realizing it. Here's where you need to remind yourself, you are the author of your story. You've already written some tough chapters in your life, chapters full of struggle, addiction, and recovery. But those are not the final chapters. You hold the pen. You get to decide what happens next. And if you're feeling like you can't break free, let me give you another picture. Think of an elephant that's been tethered to a tiny stake with a small rope since it was young. When the elephant was just a baby, trainers tied a heavy rope around its leg and secured it to a strong stake in the ground. At that age, the elephant wasn't strong enough to break free, so it learned that pulling and struggling against the rope doesn't work. Over time, the elephant gave up trying, believing that it's stuck for good. As the elephant grows older, it becomes one of the most powerful land animals on Earth, capable of easily snapping the rope and uprooting the stake. But by then, it doesn't even try. Why is that? Because it's been conditioned to believe that it's still powerless, that it's still trapped. The elephant's mind holds on to the belief that it can't escape, even though its body has long since outgrown those limitations. We do the same thing in sobriety. Like the elephant, we often are conditioned by past experiences to believe that we're limited and we can't break free of the things that have held us back. Addiction made us feel powerless for so long that even after we've gained the strength to move forward, we still believe we're stuck. We often believe that we are still powerless. But here's the truth. You're much stronger than you think. The rope that held you down in the past is nothing compared to the strength and resilience you've built in recovery. You could break free at any time. You just have to realize it and take action. One of the hardest parts of sobriety is learning how to reignite passion and find new excitement in life. In addiction, we're constantly chasing a high, and when that high is gone, we could feel like life has lost its spark. So how do we get that spark back? First, we have to recognize that passion isn't something that just falls into your lap. It's something that you cultivate. Think of passion like a campfire. You have to gather the kindling, strike the match, and keep tending to it for the fire to grow. In sobriety, it's easy to expect that life will suddenly become fulfilling just because we're not drinking or using anymore. But the truth is, sobriety gives you the opportunity to build a fire. It doesn't light it for you. It's important to remember that small sparks can ignite big changes. Don't expect everything to change overnight, but be willing to explore and be curious. The more you try, the more likely you are to find something that truly excites you. The next topic I want to touch on is routines. Routines are important in recovery. They give us structure and help keep us on track. But sometimes we could get so caught up in routine that it becomes a rut. The same daily actions could start to feel monotonous, and without realizing it, we slip into autopilot mode. If your routine is starting to feel like a prison instead of a support system, it's time to shake things up. You don't need to overhaul your entire life, but you could start by making small changes that inject some new energy into your days. Think of it this way. Routine is like a roadmap. It gets you where you need to go, but if you take the same route every day, it could get boring. Every once in a while, you need to take a detour, explore a new path, and see where it leads. Remember the goldfish? If you keep living within the confines of the same tank, you'll never grow beyond it. But in sobriety, you have the opportunity to jump out of the old tank and explore new waters. Try something new, even if it's small, whether it's a different workout, a new hobby, or a new way of thinking. One of the most effective ways to break free from feeling stuck is to lean on your support system. Sometimes we get so caught up in our own heads that we can't see the way out of a rut. That's where having people in your life who could offer perspective, encouragement, and accountability is so valuable. Addiction and recovery could often feel like we're in a maze, trying to find our way out. When you're deep in the maze, every wall starts to look the same. But if someone is standing above the maze, they could guide you in the right direction. That's what your support system could do for you. They offer the perspective you can't always see when you're stuck in the middle of it. Whether it's someone in your recovery support group, a friend, or a therapist, having an outside voice could help you see things more clearly. They might even offer suggestions or ideas you hadn't considered. And if you don't have someone like that in your life, it's a great time to seek out those connections. Recovery is a journey best taken with others and not alone. One of the most powerful tools for breaking free from a rut is focusing on small wins. When you're stuck, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by the idea of making big changes. But here's the thing, small wins build momentum. Every little step forward is a victory, and those victories add up. Maybe it's setting a goal to wake up 30 minutes earlier to meditate, writing in your journal every day, or deciding to take a short walk every evening. It could be as simple as reaching out to one new person in recovery for connection. Whatever it is, small actions create a ripple effect. Before you know it, those small wins start to create bigger shifts in your life. So here's my challenge for you this week. Identify one area in your life where you feel stuck and commit to making one small change. It doesn't have to be big, just one action that breaks the routine or shifts your focus. Once you do, pay attention to how it feels, like the elephant realizing its strength or the goldfish discovering it has more room to grow. Even a small change could reveal how much potential you truly have. Maybe it's calling a friend you've been avoiding, trying a new hobby, or even just waking up a little earlier to start your day with intention. It could also be something bigger, like finally sitting down and writing that book you've allowed to remain inside of you all these years. Don't overthink it or get too far ahead of yourself, because overthinking is often just a procrastination technique that will keep you stuck. Just sit down and write today, and then do that again tomorrow. Whatever it is, take that step and remind yourself that you are no longer tethered to the past. And remember, you are the one holding the pen to your story. Keep writing, keep growing, and don't let the limits of the past keep you from creating the future you deserve. Thank you for listening to this episode, and I hope you're enjoying the podcast. If you are, please do me one huge favor. Grab your phone and send a text to one person letting them know they should check out my podcast. That would mean the world to me. New episodes come out each Friday, so I look forward to connecting with you next week. As always, thank you so much for listening. Keep living sober and happy.